Hey everyone, and welcome back to Financial Wellness Week 2. I'm really glad that you're here again, and I want to start by saying something that's easy to overlook but is incredibly important. What you're doing right now matters way more than you think it does. Taking time to learn about how to manage your money, especially at this stage in life, is certainly not normal. Most people don't do this. Most people wait until there's a problem, until there's stress, until something forces them to pay attention. But you're choosing to be proactive. And that decision alone is going to put you in a completely different position long term. Because the truth is, people don't accidentally build strong financial lives. They don't drift into stability. They don't wake up one day and suddenly have everything figured out. What usually happens is quite the opposite. People drift into bad habits, they drift into debt, they drift into stress. And it's not because they planned that, it's because they didn't plan at all. So the fact that you're here showing up, engaging with us, and actually trying to build something different here, that's what matters. And that's where this change starts. Throughout this course, we are continuing to build on the framework of the 7 baby steps. These steps are not just financial strategies, they are a roadmap for building discipline, creating freedom, and aligning your financial life with biblical stewardship. Last week, we introduced baby steps 1 and 2, which focused on building a small emergency fund and then aggressively paying off debt. Those first 2 steps are all about creating stability and breaking the cycle that keeps people stuck. Now here in week 2, we're moving into the next phase of the journey, and this is where things begin to shift. This is where you move from just surviving financially to actually building a foundation for your future. Baby step 3 is building a fully funded emergency fund. Typically 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This is very different from the $1,000 starter emergency fund that we talked about in week 1. That first step was about creating a buffer between you and chaos. This step is about creating real stability in your life. And I want you to think about what that actually means. 3 to 6 months of expenses is not a small amount. This takes time, it takes discipline, and it takes consistency. But what you're building here is margin. You're building the ability to handle major life disruptions without panic. Because life is not always predictable. Jobs will change, unexpected expenses will happen, and emergencies will come up. And without a plan, those moments can completely derail you. But with a fully funded emergency fund, you're no longer reacting out of fear, you're responding with confidence. Proverbs 6 talks about the ant preparing in advance, storing up during times of plenty so that it is ready when times are difficult. That's exactly what this step is all about. It's not about fear, it's about wisdom. It's about preparation. And here's what begins to change when you reach this step. You start to experience a level of peace that most people don't have. Because instead of living paycheck to paycheck, constantly hoping nothing goes wrong, you know that if something does happen, you're prepared. You're not fragile, you're stable. And that stability allows you to think differently, to make better decisions, and to move forward with a confidence instead of constantly looking over your shoulder. Now, once that foundation is in place, you move into baby step 4. And this is where we begin to shift into long-term thinking. And that is investing for retirement. Baby step 4 is investing 15% of your household income into retirement. This is where you begin building for the future, not just reacting to the present. And I want to pause right here because this is a mindset shift for a lot of people. Up to this point, most of your financial energy has been focused on getting out of debt and building stability. Now we begin focusing on growth. This is where you start thinking not just about where you are today, but where you want to be 10, 20, or even 40 years from now. Ecclesiastes 11:2 talks about investing and spreading out your resources because you do not know what lies ahead. That principle still applies today. Investing is not about guessing, it's about preparing. And this is where tools like a Roth IRA and a 401k comes into play. These are not just financial accounts, they are vehicles that allow your money to grow over time. And one of the most important and powerful concepts here is time. Because when you start early, even small amounts can grow into something significant. But if you delay, it becomes much harder to catch up. That's why consistency matters more than intensity in this step. It's not about trying to invest a huge amount all at once. It's about being consistent over time, month after month, year after year. And here's what I want you to understand. This step is not about becoming wealthy overnight. It's about building a future where you are not dependent, where you are prepared, and where you have options. It's about stewardship over the long term. Now, I want to connect this back to what we're doing today with budgeting, because this is where everything ties together. You don't accidentally complete baby step 3. You don't accidentally invest 15% of your income into retirement. Those things happen because you have a plan. They happen because you are intentional, and they happen because you've learned to give every dollar an assignment. Budgeting is the tool that makes these steps possible, because without a budget, saving 3 to 6 months of living expenses feels absolutely overwhelming. Without a budget, investing consistently feels out of reach. But with a plan, those things become achievable, one step at a time. And this is why the order of the baby steps matters so much. You don't skip ahead, you don't try to do everything at once. You focus on the step you're in, because each step builds on the one before it. And just like we said last week, personal finance is not just about math, it's about behavior. It's about habits. It's about consistency. The baby steps simplify the process so that instead of feeling overwhelmed, you have a clear path forward. And as you walk through that path step by step, what you're really building is not just financial stability. You're building discipline. You're building confidence. You're building a life that is marked by intentionality instead of chaos. And ultimately, you're putting yourself in a position where money is no longer a source of stress, but a tool that you can use with wisdom, purpose, and impact. Now, last week, we talked about awareness. We talked about stepping back and taking an honest look at where you are financially. Not where you want to be, not where you pretend to be, but where you actually are. And if you really did that, if you actually looked at your spending habits, your situation, it probably didn't feel great. And that's normal, because clarity is uncomfortable before it becomes helpful. But that discomfort is necessary, because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot improve what you ignore. And you can't move forward if you're not willing to be honest about where you're starting. But here's where most people get stuck. Awareness alone does not create change. You can know exactly what you should be doing with money and still not do it. You can listen to advice, agree with everything, feel motivated for a moment, and then go right back to the same habits that next day. Why? Because knowledge is not the problem, structure is. People don't fail with money because they don't know enough about it. They fail because they don't have a system that turns what they know into what they actually do. And that's where budgeting comes in. Now, let's be honest, because this matters. Most people don't like the idea of actually budgeting. The moment they hear that word, something in their mind immediately pushes back. It feels restrictive. It feels limiting. It feels like something that's going to take freedom away. But that's not what a budget actually is. A budget is not a restriction, it's a plan. It's not taking something away from you, it's helping you decide what actually matters. It's not about saying no to everything. It's just about saying yes to the right things. Let me explain it like this. If you got in your car right now and just started driving with no destination, no direction, no plan, you would call that freedom. You'd call that confusion. But the moment you decide where you're going, everything changes. Now your decisions have purpose. Now your movement has a direction. Now you're in control. A budget does that exact same thing with your money. Without a budget, your money simply disappears. With a budget, your money has a purpose, and that's the shift we're making today. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, your money is already being spent. The only question is, are you deciding where it goes, or is it deciding for you? For most people, it's the second one. Money comes in and it just flows right back out. Bills and food, subscriptions and random purchases, things that feel small in the moment but add up over time. And then at the end of the month, you look back and think, where did it all go? That's what happens without a plan. And here's something you need to understand clearly. Nobody plans to be broke. Nobody plans to be stressed about money. Nobody plans to feel behind, but people also don't plan their money. And when there's no plan, the outcome is predictable. So today we're going to change that. We're moving from awareness into action. We're building a system, and we're doing that by creating a budget together. As we walk through this, I want you to stay engaged. Don't just watch this passively. Think about your own situation. Think about your own numbers, because this only works if you actually do it. I'm going to be using a budgeting app today called Every Dollar, created by Dave Ramsey and his team. You don't have to use this exact app, but it's one of the simplest ways to apply what we're talking about. The idea behind it is something called a zero-based budget. And all that means is this: every dollar you make gets assigned a job before you spend it. Not after, before. Because most people track money after it's already gone. This flips that. You're deciding in advance. So let's walk through this together as we transition to the budget. So as you're looking at this is the Every Dollar budgeting app. You'll notice right away that it's designed to help you give every dollar a specific assignment. That's the goal here. You're not tracking money after we spend it. We're planning it before we spend it. Now, before we plug in the numbers, we need to talk about income. Some of you have fixed income, meaning you make the same amount each month. But others have variable income, where your paycheck changes month to month. If that's you, you want to build your budget based on your lowest expected income. Certainly not your highest. That creates stability, and it's going to keep you from overcommitting. So for this example, we're going to be working with $4,000 per month. That's going to be our sample here. Now, our job is to give all $4,000 a purpose. So let's plug in $4,000 right here under paycheck number 1. Alrighty, so once we have that in there, you can see on the right side there that the income now says $4,000. So now we're going to be able to start giving assignments off of this $4,000. We want to start with giving here, of course. That's going to be our first section, our tithe. We want to give first, not last, because this is our priority, certainly not the leftovers here. So Proverbs 3:9 says to honor the Lord with the first fruits. So that's exactly what we're doing right here. We're going to be setting aside 10% or $400 away for our monthly tithe right here. That brings us down to $3,600. So let's go ahead and plug in that $400 into the giving. I have it marked as the church section here. So you can see that's going to auto-populate over here on your summary, and we've already taken that 10% out. So now we're going to be moving into what we're going to call the four walls. Like we talked about last week, that is our basics that are going to keep our life running. Those things are our food, our housing, our utilities, and transportation. So we're going to want to plug each of those in right after tithing here. So for food and groceries, we're going to set that at $500. So plug in $500. Right there. And then for housing, that's going to be either our rent or our mortgage, whatever applies to you. We're going to set that at $1,400. Now remember that this is just a sample budget, so it may be different for you, but we're just plugging in what possibly a typical family could be here. So, and then we have utilities and internet combined together here. We're going to set that at $300. And then our transportation costs, anything car related, gas, repairs, things like that, we're going to throw that in and we're going to put that at $400. So that brings our total so far to $2,600. So we subtract that from $3,600 and now we have $1,000 remaining. So there's $1,000 left in our $4,000 budget to spend. So our next line item here, as you can see, is insurance. And this is one of those categories that will look different for just about everyone. So I just want to keep that in mind. Some of you might still be covered by your parents. Others might be paying for your own health insurance, car insurance, renter's insurance, all sorts of things like that. So the number will vary, but that principle is going to stay exactly the same. We plan for protection before we need it. Proverbs 27:12 says, the wise see danger and take refuge. So in this example, we are going to set $300 aside for insurance right here, $300. So we're going to just plug that line item in right here, insurance and $300. So now we're down to $700 left in our budget and we need to move into debt. And I want to be real clear right here, if you don't have any debt, you can simply skip this section. It's not going to apply to you. But if you do, this becomes the absolute priority. This is where we're going to start squeezing all the other areas of our budget and just throwing as much money as we can each month from our budget at that debt. Because debt limits your freedom, and the faster you eliminate it, the faster you're going to gain control of your financial future. So in this example, we're going to set aside $250 towards our debt payments. So if you go into here on debt, you're going to click new debt right here, and you're going to put the debt name in right here. So for some people, that's going to just be housing. So if you plug that in right there on the debt name, you're going to select the debt type. So you're going to run down through here and click real estate loan. Now, if you have something else, you can certainly click that there. The current balance for this family is going to be $200,000. So we're going to plug that in right there. The minimum payment is going to be $500. And then the interest rate is sitting at 6% for this family. So the original balance was $250. So you want to plug that in as well. And then when you click add debt, it gets plugged in right there. So that'll be good for the debt portion there. Now we've still got $450 remaining in this budget after we've gone through all these different line items. And we need to move into savings right here. So that's going to be our next line item here, savings. So even while paying off this debt, we still want to build some level of stability. So we put $150 into our emergency fund and then $50 into our general fund. So we're going to put $150 in here. This emergency fund is going to be for you to have a buffer between you and life, like we talked about last week, for that $150, and that's going to continue to grow as we go month to month. And then our general savings here is just for our savings account. So we have those set up right there. And then that's going to total $200, and so now we're down to $250 left. So from here, we're going to move on to investing for the future right here, our future goals. We have that in the savings category right here. So this is where building that future really begins. We're going to put $100 into the Roth IRA and then $50 into a 401k. So that's a total of $150 right there. So let's go ahead and add that into our budget. So the Roth IRA is right here. We're going to be throwing $50 this month at that. Remember that the annual contribution right now is $7,500 for that Roth IRA, so we want to make sure that we're maxing that out. And then we'll talk about tax-preferred accounts and things like investing next week. That's going to be what we're diving into next week. But just to give you a little preface right here, we want to make sure we're maxing out our Roth IRAs each year. Like I said, currently at $7,500, and then we want to make sure we are paying 100% of whatever your company is matching on your 401k. So if that's 5%, 6%, whatever that might be, we want to make sure we're doing that as well. But for this family, $100 is matching that 401k contribution. So we have taken care of our investments here. Now we're finally going to move into our personal or lifestyle spending, because real life includes these categories too. Things like eating out. This family, we're going to set that at $40. So that's probably only going to get you out one time there, but we'll see how quick this kind of starts to shrink on us. Entertainment, we'll put $20 there. And then for our subscriptions, we're going to do $20 there as well. So we're going to put $20 in there. And finally, for personal care, we'll have $20. So as you can see, we've given every dollar an assignment right here. It's pretty clear that income minus the expenses will equal zero right here. So on our $4,000 income, we've been able to give each line item an assignment right here. All right, so you can see here at the top, it says it is an every dollar budget. That means that our income minus our expenses equals zero, and that's exactly what we're looking for here. We want to make sure that every dollar has an assignment and that every section has a spoken for amount that we're going to be spending for this month. So we'll run through it one more time here. Our paycheck was $4,000, as we can see here. Moving down through here, we've got our tithe at $400, covering our four walls. We've got food at $500, housing at $1,400, utilities and internet at $300, and transportation at $400. So that takes up a pretty decent chunk of our budget right there. And then moving down to insurance, we have it at $300. Remember, that's going to be definitely different depending on your family and your lifestyle. And then our mortgage, we're paying $250 a month on that currently. So and then we get into savings. Our emergency fund is at $150, general savings at $50. And then our investments, we're going to be giving $50 to the Roth and $100 to the 401k through your work. We'll talk about those a lot more next week. And then our personal accounts, eating out at $40, entertainment, subscriptions, and personal care all at $20. So you can see kind of here at the bottom how the money got tight there towards the bottom of the account. So even with a $4,000 income, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of budgeting to make sure that your budget really turns into something that you can really work with each month. Now, one thing that we want to make sure that you realize and understand is that the budget will not be perfect your first month. We want to make sure that you know that, because people can get discouraged when they run their budget and it's not perfect each month. And so we want to make sure that you understand that as you go through the months, things are going to go up and down, and you're going to be able to plan accordingly off of the last month's budget. But it's a work in progress, and you're always going to get better at it as you go. But the key is to start somewhere, and this is a good place to start for sure. All right, so now I want you to really think about what we just did right there. We didn't increase income, and we didn't rely on luck. We didn't change anything external. We simply gave structure to money that already existed. And that structure created clarity in the budget. That clarity is what most people are missing. Let me show you how this plays out in real life. Let's say you're halfway through the month and your friends invite you to go out to eat. Before budgeting, that decision is emotional. You think, do I feel like going? Or I probably have enough. So you go, but later something else comes up and now you're short. That's a reaction. Now compare that to budgeting. You already decided that you have $40 for eating out. That's it. So when that moment comes, the question isn't emotional anymore. It's simple. Is there money left in that category? If yes, you go with confidence. If no, you don't. That's control. Here's another scenario. Let's say something unexpected happens. Your car needs a repair. It's $300. Without a budget, that moment can create stress. You're scrambling. You're shifting money around. You're hoping it doesn't mess everything up. But with a plan, that situation looks a whole lot different. You already accounted for the unexpected. So instead of panic, there's a process. Instead of stress, a solution. That's what this does. It doesn't eliminate the problems, it just prepares you for those problems. Now let's go one level deeper. The real issue isn't math, it's going to be behavior. Most spending decisions are emotional. You buy things because you feel something. You're bored, you're stressed, you want convenience, you want to fit in. And in the moment, it feels small. But over time, those small decisions shape your entire financial future. That's why budgeting matters so much. It creates a barrier between emotion and action. It forces you to decide ahead of time. And when you decide ahead of time, you don't have to rely on discipline in the moment. You've already made the decision, and that changes everything. Because discipline is inconsistent, but the structure is reliable. And over time, that reliability builds habits, and habits are what change your life forever. Not one big moment, but repeated patterns over time. That's what we're building here. Now here's something important. Your first budget will not be perfect. Like I said before, you will forget things, you will underestimate, you will overspend, and that is not failure. That's part of the process. Budgeting is something you practice, not something that you perfect. Every month you get better. Every month you adjust, and every month you're going to refine that budget. And over time, that consistency will build confidence. You stop feeling out of control, you stop feeling behind, and you stop feeling stressed. And you start feeling intentional. That is the whole goal here. Now in Luke 16:10, it says that whoever is faithful with the little will be faithful with much. That means this matters right now, not later. Because if you don't build the habit now, more money won't fix this problem. It will just make the problem even bigger. So start now. Start where you are and start with what you have and build that habit. So here's your challenge this week. Download the Every Dollar app, sit down, and build your budget. Go through every category and be honest with yourself. Give every dollar a job or an assignment, and then follow it. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Because this is bigger than numbers. This is about control and clarity. This is about building a life where your money aligns with what matters most to you. And that starts with a plan. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and I will see you in week 3.